In a time with no father, how will a boy recognize his king? What is it to be a man? What is it that defines adulthood? How does a young man find his manhood in today's concrete jungle and alarm clock culture? How does he find the cycles of the stars within himself? Good evening, good day, good night, good morning, wherever you may be. Welcome back to Still Point Radio. I'm your host, Mrryanmcmahon, always bringing conscious content your way. Thank you for joining me. Today I have a very special guest from the old country, from where my bloodlines are from ancient Ireland. His name is Patrick Brady, and he's the founder of the Myth House, which is a social project designed to bring young men and young boys into manhood in an ancient way, a way that's connected to nature, and a way that is connected to the divine spirit of the human being. This goes way back to the roots of ancient Ireland. Sit back and enjoy Patrick Brady and the Myth House. Here we go. All right, Patrick. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Can you just tell us a little bit about where you were born, where you're from, a little bit about who you are, what your background is?
I'm the eldest son of an Irish dairy farmer, and I grew up in Ulster, but in the Irish Republic. So I was raised on a dairy farm near Ballyjamestoff, County Cavan, and I was 21 years old, and my father said, "Patrick, you stay on the farm." And my mother came an hour later and said, "Son, you should go to New York City." And the back story is that Maggie Thatcher was the Prime Minister of England, and the young men were on a hunger strike in Northern Ireland trying to establish an identity for what it meant to be Irish. So I left Ireland, moved to New York City, and spent 7 years proving what liberty was not.
Well, that story of the Irish leaving Ireland is, in an odd sort of way, at least being an Irish American, an odd sort of way is part of the cultural identity of the modern Irish, right? I mean, there's every Irish person that I've ever met has either left Ireland, or a big portion of their family and ancestry has left Ireland, and you follow that suit. So my first question is, when you left, what were you seeking?
To please my mother.
Interesting. Okay, so to please your mother. How would you have done that in those days? What would, in your mind, if you left there, what would have been pleasing to your mother when you came back?
So it's so interesting to look at the story from here, because there's a power struggle with men and women in this modern time over who has the voice, who has the power. And my father ran the farm and did the work, but my mother, she made the decisions about where her sons were going to live. And there was not much pleasing. You know, it was the lesser of two evils for me to leave Ireland.
Wow.
That particular place along the border was neither north nor south, so it was the grey area in between.
And when you left Ireland and you came, so you did come to New York, right? That's where you first landed? Okay. Same with my friend Seamus McGill, a good longtime friend. He landed in New York. A lot of Irish land in New York and Boston. But when you got here, well, I mean, it's kind of a big story, but when you got here to where you are now, here in San Diego, California, you've come up with this social project called the Myth House. So let's get into that a little bit. Tell me what the Myth House is, and what its intention or mission statement is, and what you'd like to share with society at large with the Myth House.
If I could begin by sharing a poem that I wrote some 15 years ago called Vision. You have found out where the hawk hides, and that safe spot where the stork sits. You can see clear where the cat stalked, near the deer tracks, and it all fits. You will find fast where the bear slept, and the footprint where the wolf went. Now you know well where coyote crept, and the grass flat where some time spent. You can hear now what the crow calls, and believe all that the birds say. You will dream deep when the night falls, and will live full in the new day. The places mentioned in that poem, we've heard of them.
Yeah.
But how do you find them? How do you become intimate and know these places personally? Myth House is a space in time to connect with that which surrounds us and which we know, but have never taken the permission to go out and claim these places and become intimate with them. This is our earth, our universe, our place in time. Myth House is taking that into action and claiming it as individuals together.
I love that. The poem was beautiful, and of course, my connection to nature, whether it be hiking or surfing or practicing ceremony, in all my teachings and writings, nature is our greatest teacher. And one of the things that I resonate most with my ancestry, being Irish, is my grandfather's stories and other people's stories about the land. And when I first set foot on Ireland, something happened, and I felt the land, and that feeling is still with me to this day. When I hear the pipes, when I hear a whistle, when I smell turf burning, or just when I think of Ireland, there is a feeling of the land that is in me. And I don't know if I got it before I got here, on Earth, or in this body, so to speak, or if it came to me when I revisited Ireland. But that poem really speaks to me in our our deepest reflections and connections to who we really are as spiritual beings, if I'm hearing you correctly, can really only be accessed with a direct immersion or connection with nature. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so the Myth House, I've talked to you briefly a little bit about your workshop that you have coming up here on next week, next Sunday. You're doing a workshop where you're going to be, well, you have to tell me more about it, but you have this beautifully forged knife, real large knife here on the table here with the handle made of bone. And you made this knife yourself. And I know that the Myth House and what your workshop has to do with, uses this knife as a central theme or symbol. Can you just go in and tell me about the workshop and what the knife is all about?
So the first stage in the Myth House is the boar hunt. And our good friend Martin Luther King said in a speech in the 60s, if you can get the young men of the country, you have the country. And the boar hunt is a challenge to the young men who have not been challenged. And it's an invitation to the young men to go out and put their feet on the earth and find the wild element and challenge this thing. Michael Meade talks about the soul, the dark secret, the mystery of the soul. And the boar, the nocturnal hunter, is where we're going, and we're going to get down into some of the secrets of the night. And there are 3 rules to embarking on the boar hunt. 1, don't tell your mother. 2, you won't go boar hunting until you have first forged your knife. And 3, no shoes. So we're stripping it down to the basic elements here, and we're going out to be wild people living on this earth together.
Beautiful. There's a lot of elements there I could talk about. First of all, this is obviously what we would call a rite of passage, and I want you to speak more about that. But before you do, I want to say that it's of my opinion that our current society is a bit sick, and that our culture has lost both our male and our female rites of passage. And these rites of passage, although they be cultural, they really come out of thousands of years of our communion with nature. Because nature is all about cycles, time cycles, whether it be the day, the month, or the year, or the precession of the equinox. So it's our rites of passage have been sort of just reduced to type in a keyboard or watching Netflix, and there's something that's lost in the man and the woman, but for our purposes, in the young boy or the young man, if he doesn't get these rites of passages to claim his own individuality and his own sovereignty, and walk on the earth as a man. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And there's a story in Celtic folklore. Finn McCool and his band of warriors, na Fianna, young men who were too old to live at home and too young to own land, and they went out and formed a band of, we could call them warriors, but they were runners, they were healthy, they took care of the land, they were aware, and they were available. And if somebody in the social context needed help, a chieftain, or there was work to be done, they could call on na Fianna to come help. And in the modern context, we have mothers trying to raise their sons and give them something that they really don't have to give. And the father is away at work, or he's off somewhere out of the picture. So there's a breakdown in the social construct. And the boy is... Michael Meade says that if he's not given direction by a trusted elder in the society, that he will burn down the structures that were built by society to heat himself from the fire. Actually, to quote the man, he says, if the fires that innately burn inside youth are not intentionally and lovingly added to the heart of community, they will burn down the structures of culture just to feel the warmth.
That's pretty powerful, and I would totally agree with that. And I think that is what's happening right now, and I recognize it. I see it. I come from a very loving family, but I didn't get these rites of passage. I actually have had to seek them out myself. Luckily, I had a spiritual inclination at a young point in my life where I was very introverted and self-reflective, and I spent a lot of time in nature. And I think those things just tip me off that I need to be doing this kind of work, this kind of stuff. And you're talking about the dark mystery and the darkness there. That's like the classic shadow work of like Carl Jung or the Joseph Campbell sort of psychology. And if I'm hearing the quote there correctly, if a society doesn't do this kind of work, then it's gonna sort of, I don't want to say self-destruct, but it's gonna sabotage itself to a certain point to where it's going to have to do this kind of work. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think that there's a lot of hope when we still can look at the options of doing this work, because the other side of the coin here, if you will, is that young men, they're being offered these lures and come with me, there's something exciting and wild down this alleyway, and they go there and they don't come back. And this is my experience, that the sound of one's footsteps running, not competitively, but just to set the heartbeat to the rhythm of one's own ears, one's own inner amphitheater, running in nature with no agenda, just to be there, is a beautiful freedom and a celebration of life unlike any other. So we intellectuals have agreed somehow that talking about things in an intellectual way was related to the actual experience of doing it. So we can talk here contentedly for long hours about Orion the hunter and Polaris and all the wild and unknowable beings in the cosmos, without ever going out and identifying them in the night where they live. And it's time to take these things and apply them into our lives as people. And I see that it's a great opportunity here and essential that we claim this right, this celebration.
I absolutely agree. it's time to take action for sure. And it's kind of ironic that you and I are sitting here talking. We're talking about
Yeah.
stuff, right? But in our day and age, people that are going to listen in the digital realm, this podcast or the radio or the television or the internet or whatnot. So we're getting it out there. And then the Irish are known for their conversation. They're beautiful conversationalists. But I must say that you yourself in this workshop, what you're doing is taking action. You're offering young men, and I would actually say you don't have to be young to participate in this workshop. If you're a man who hasn't gotten through this rite of passage and you're 50 years old or 60 years old, you're still welcome to come to this, and you will still access that part of your inner child that never got this if you go through this workshop. So you are taking action with this, forging this knife and going on a boar hunt. So, okay, so my next question, shifting into that, is tell us about the 3 rules again, and then, or just tell us why those rules apply. What's the significance of those 3 rules?
The first rule, don't tell your mother. And Robert Bly went in depth into the relationship between the son and the mother. And it's been a point of discussion and debate long and far. And the mother is never gonna one morning wake up and say, Johnny, I had a dream last night. Here's a knife, take it and go after the wild boar. She's not going to happen. And yet she can sit there and feel the pain of Johnny's inadequacy, with the discomfort and the dissatisfaction of his life. Her love for her son will obligate her to go with Johnny down to the darkest pit, and yet can't hold his hand and pull him out of it. So we're talking about taking the young man out to his birthright, the place that he moves from, his mother's house, out into a relationship with Mother Nature. And so, I have to be careful with this, because we love our mothers, but there's some places that sons need to go that mothers have no business knowing about, and vice versa. And the second rule is, each one who goes on the boar hunt will forge their own knife. The ritual, the myth, the story, the legend, the fire, the iron, the sharpening the blade, the dreaming the vision, the decision to go towards a direction. These are they are part of the process of the forge, the myth, and the blade. And so we go through that together and talk about all these things: the annealing the metal, the hammering the shape of the metal on the anvil, the hardening the metal, tempering. And each one of these things is such an essential character building discussion. Annealing: what is your name? Who are you? What is your frustration? What is out of alignment within you? Where is the name that you are called? Where did it come from? Who gave it to you? Did you choose it? Are you happy when you hear somebody calling it? So annealing the blade, a word that's going to come into this conversation is around the forge, is the word forgery. And they're closely linked, and yet they are polar opposing words. So we're going to understand these words. We're going to become familiar with them, forging the path of one's destiny and recognizing the forgeries that have become part of our character. And then back to the fire, back to the heat, the intensity, the breath, the sun, the dream, and then hardening the metal and working with the metal to create a permanent, a tool that's useful and that we will take with us to carry out the functions that we have set for ourselves to do. And then the third rule is no shoes. And that intimacy between the foot and the skin of Mother Earth is probably the most crucial and necessary relationship we're ever going to have. And it's the one which we have separated ourselves from, and we suffer. We suffer our lives long because of the separation that has, forged itself between our daily functions and the joy of taking a walk on the soft earth. And what you felt, Ryan, was a connection with your mother when you went to Ireland. And that's what she is. That's what she calls to her sons, no matter where they are.
That's beautiful. Yes, I agree with you. And I also know that the land of Ireland, as far back as I've researched, has always been a female. There's a lot of goddess respect and a lot of goddess worship in Ireland. Maybe not so much in the modern day, in modern politics being capitalistic and bank driven, but I know that the myths and the legends, and I mean I don't know all the names of them, but I know that Ireland is a she, and I think that's just in my natural view, it's just totally correct that the earth principle, the cosmic principle of the earth, is in fact more feminine than masculine. And typically cultures that see this and honor this see the sun as being masculine and the earth as being feminine. And there's a balance there that those cultures, I think, carry with them. And maybe in modern times, especially in America, I kind of think like we're out of balance. So yeah, what you just said resonates with me. That's beautiful. And the putting your feet on the earth, and even I know it's totally factual and proven that the soles of your feet, they take on the minerals and the elements in which they come in contact with. The feet, the skin on the feet takes in these minerals. So when you're walking on the earth, depending on what you're walking on, your body is taking it in. It's a form of nourishment, just like eating and breathing.
Absolutely. The grounding, the releasing the negative charge that we build up into the earth, stimulating all the pressure points on the foot. It's a great gift.
Yeah, it is. It's something that, living in San Diego, I love it when it's warm outside and I can walk barefooted, whether it be on the beach or just right here in my front yard or whatever. Okay, so let's talk about, let's see, I have a few questions here. Do you want to get into the Tuatha, so you have to say that for me.
Tuatha Dé Danann.
Yeah. Say it again.
Tuatha Dé Danann, the people of Danu. In my personal experience, moving away from the misrepresentation of life, which came down through religious dogma, through political strivings for order and control, and all these nameless things that we have agreed to. It's important to say that there's something so simple that's here, that is here and accessible in each breath, in each waking moment. There's universal truths for you and for I and for us. And anything else is an outlandish claim. If I can't find this magic and this joy and this abandon and this song to sing here in this place at this moment, then it doesn't exist. So I think for me that is essential to establish that, and then we can go from there. There are fantastic stories of people and how they related to this earth and the sky above us and the stars out there and the cycles around us. Each culture had its own specific ritual, and we're in a good time here because we're smart enough to know that there's something missing, and that we have the adventurous spirit within us to go and find it, or to sit and find it, or to open up to its being within us.
Well said. Okay, so what you just said there again was pretty poignant. You have to say
the people of Danu.
The people of Danu. Those people and the way that they lived represents what you just expressed as that connection, let me say conscious connection to the earth that they live on. And the other thing that comes through when you say that to me is I've studied a lot of different traditions, but in the Toltec tradition, one of the things they did that I appreciated is they were honest, and they said, hey, look, regardless of what culture or tradition you're participating in spiritually, there's always going to be an exoteric and an esoteric. They called it the formal and the energetic. And real briefly, I'll explain that. The formal version or teaching of a tradition, the whole point, the purpose of having a formal teaching is just to control the flock, to maintain and create and control a flock, meaning to control the way people think and to control their behavior. It becomes a profit model. Now, the esoteric side of that, the essence of a spiritual tradition, a truthful one, deals in energetics. And so they don't care so much about what's written down in the book. What they're doing is taking action, and they're putting you as an initiate directly into the space, the time and space, where you can actually feel the tradition spiritually, like quite literally, like putting your body into an energetic shift. And of course that affects your body, your mind, your emotions, and your soul. And so that's where the real spiritual transformations occur, is in the energetic side. And what I hear from you is forging your own knife, putting your feet on the earth, having guidance of someone who's already done this, a wiser elder who's there to teach you trust, loyalty, honor, respect, power. It's a total energetic approach to spirit. It's not something that you need to carry around in a book. or read about. It's the real deal. It's where you're gonna go in and take action. You're gonna do something with your being. So that speaks to me, and I really appreciate that. And I think that those people, the people of Danu, represent that in Irish culture.
There's a quote from Joseph Campbell regarding the hero. The beginning, the first stage in the hero's journey is that the spiritual center has been moved from within the social context and out into some place of unknown adventure, out in the wild, out into this open country, shall we say. And I love this story of Leofal and the Hill of Tara, where when the people chose the king, by whatever means they did that, an agreement, the coronation ceremony was held on this stone on the Hill of Tara. And when the stone recognized this being as the king, a vibration was felt through the entire land. So the land recognized the decision of the people as being a good one. And this was obviously a person who had the compassion to understand that if the north is not balanced with the south and the west is not conscious of the east, then the country is going to be in disharmony. And there's a lot of stories surrounding that Leofal and its current whereabouts. So again, we have stories, we have whispers of stories, but if we're not willing to act and go out and familiarize ourselves with this experience and all its dimensions, then the direction we're going in here is just there's disarray, there's discontent, there's a lot of questions that are not being answered, and we need to have answers, and we do.
Yes, we do. And in order to find those answers, you have to go from being a child to a man at some point. Or if you're a woman, a child to being a woman. And so defining what that is, being a whole person, I think, is being a man, And you can't do that in our current society. It's just nearly impossible. They've taken away those rites of passages and replace them with taxation from the hamster wheel and football on Sundays, and it's just not fulfilling
in your heart and your soul. And I also thought it was interesting that you said the stone and the land recognized the king and the kingship. And that goes back to the person, the leader, who's going to take on that responsibility of leadership, removing their self-importance and removing their ego from the situation and allowing the decision of the people in accordance with the recognition of the land to come into that process. And that's just something that we don't do anymore in these days. It's almost a joke. It's all bought and paid for.
It's actually mind-blowing that people still, some people today don't see this, or they don't realize that it's all a big reality TV show that's all scripted, and we don't really have
I really see a fabulous opportunity here for each one of us as individuals to look at the stories that we have been told or not, and the myth or mythology or the foundation which we have built our own lives as individuals. And what we're going to find is that there's areas in there that need fortification, They need forging. They need to be really examined. And strength and clarity and discretion and determination and enthusiasm and words like this for the individual are so crucial. What's been on my mind recently is this agreement or disagreement, whichever you want to call it, between the settled people and the nomadic tribes. And we rambled and we were tuned into the frequency of the cosmic vibration, and we moved with the seasons. And then some breakaway revolutionary part of the tribe said, we're going to stop, we're going to stay, we're going to build a fixed point here and let the earth go about its cycles without us. And you know, it's the oldest disagreement that we have. We said this is good, and the tribe grew, and we elected our leaders to make sense of it and tell us that it was going to be all right, but we knew in our heart and soul that it was not, and that life was movement and life would never stop. And we could tell ourselves whatever story we wanted, but that was obvious all around us. The movement and the motion and the uncertainty and the great wild poetry in that, in uncertainty. So take this and make it all, because it's all there is.
That's a good way to say it. That's a great way to say it. What I hear is the people in tune with the cycles of nature, in this case the ancient Eire or Irish, or the Hibernians, the Hebrew, which is where we get the word Hebrew. It's not actually a Jewish or Zionist word. That's totally incorrect. But these people in tune with nature, they were living in, I would say, in a much more free and wild, not wild in the sense of savagery, but wild in the sense that they could feel and hear and listen and participate with the nature of the earth at will, because they could hear it. It's a part of their being. It's coming to them. The spirit is speaking to them, and they hear it, or they see it, they feel it. They don't question it. Whereas today, with the modern science movement, most scientists are, claiming atheism, which is just retarded. I mean, it just is. It's like, I don't care how many numbers that you can crunch with math and create, a language with your math. It doesn't deny the fact that there's a mysterious thing going on here, that we didn't create the universe. We didn't create the planet. We don't know how we got here. If you disregard the spiritual aspect of life, you're in self-denial. And I think atheism is just a fear of your own light. It's self-denial at its finest. Materialism, reductionism, left brain only thinking is a trap. And all peoples that are aware of nature, all of them would agree with what I'm saying. Because they see that it's a mystery. They see that it's full of wonder. And that wonder, I think, is what you're getting at, is that if you step into the wisdom stream and you allow it to come into your life, into your heart, and into your soul, it will guide you into beauty, like just really significant places of beauty.
Absolutely. And spirituality, act of nature, spring, flowers, and footprints on the earth, these, like, spirituality is an action. There has to be action. The body needs free movement. And we can talk about the theory and the the history of things, but this moment now, action here on earth in an open and a peaceful way, and spirituality are part of the same conversation. And it's beautiful, because you can walk out there, I can walk out there, and I can jump high and try to grab something out of my reach, and tomorrow do it again and I'll be closer. And this life is so unknowable. It's so unknowable. The best that I can hope for is to smile as often as I can, is to have many friends as I can make on this journey, is to look people like you, Ryan, in the eye and say that I love you, my brother. It doesn't really matter where the roots that we pulled or the roots we're going to plant. What's important is sitting here, is having the willingness to go out and be alive.
Aho, for sure. I agree. Aho Matakuyase. That brings me back to, since we're talking a bit about spiritual tradition, I love you too, brother, by the way. Thank you for those kind words. I respect and honor that. My point in saying this about spiritual traditions, it took me years and years and years of studying many, many, many traditions, heavy, deep reading of all kinds, to finally realize that what true spiritual traditions are teaching is character building. It comes down to character. It's like, if you're pontificating about a religious theory, which I do that all the time on other podcasts, in my books and stuff like that, I teach a certain way. But if what you're teaching is not embodied in yourself as a teacher, meaning your character doesn't come through as being, there's like a few basic character traits that all holy people or spiritual people will have, regardless of what path they're on. They're all going to be honest. They're all going to have loyalty and integrity. They're all going to have respect for others, and I would say all life. They're also going to have humility, or I would say maybe a better word is being humble, and this is a hard one for us, is if you have an abundance of knowledge, it doesn't mean that you're better than the next person walking by you on the street. You have no way to judge another person accurately. So to be humble is to realize that you have no master above you except for the spirit itself, and you have no slave beneath you. You can't manipulate and control others and be an integrous spiritual person. And then love, right? The quintessential love, the interconnected principle, the principle in nature where all things are interconnected, recognizing that you're connected to the earth is connected to the sky is connected to the sun is connected to the galaxy is connected to the cosmos. It's all interconnected. There's no break between them. It's all one thread, unwinding and unfolding in a beautiful way. And then I guess maybe another one would be there has to be the character of courage or bravery. Those few traits, if you can walk through your life truly giving those traits to yourself, caring for yourself, and embodying them, which I think is exactly what you're talking about when you go on this boar hunt. You're tapping into your true nature, your true spirit. It's not about the death of an animal. It's about so much more. It's about your character and your spirit as a human man.
Absolutely. And I was having a conversation with some young men about the boar hunt, and one of them asked me, Patrick, could we not chase sheep or goats? And I said, the boar has the thing that you need. He has a fierce passion for his own existence, which we really don't understand in the social context here. And he has no question about what that means or about the value. That means everything. All his worth is in his being. And there's no way to even begin to imagine that without actually interviewing the boar. And the only interview that we're going to have with that boar is going out into his territory in the night and seeing what he has to say. So it's a long journey to get there. Meanwhile, we're going to be forging some knives. We're going to be talking about mythology. We're going to be lighting the fire. And we're going to be reawakening to the mystery of this.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. That's a great honor, I think, for someone to be participating in such a thing if they choose to do so. At whatever level they want to take it. I mean, it might be a long journey for some people. It might take them years to get to that point where they start forging their own knife. But either way, your project, the social project, the Myth House project, is necessary in these days, in these times. And I'm glad that we're sharing it, in this way with other people. I think it's going to grow, and it's going to also awaken young boys to even think about what it is to be a man. I mean, I have, once in a while, I have certain people that come to me. There's been a couple of young boys. I've done some ceremony for a rite of passage into manhood at a certain birthday. And I was honored to be asked to be the wise elder. And I'm not even an elder, I'm still a young man. But the point is that I've done some of this work. I've thought about it. What is it to be a man? What do I have to be fulfilled, to call myself a man and know it, And there's certain things where I go, well, I'm not there yet. And what you're offering it's rare and very important. So I thank you for building this project. I also wanted to just go back in. You mentioned earlier about the sword, or we could say this, in this case, the knife, as a symbol of this way, or a symbol of this path. And the knife that you have here in front of me it's awesome. It's a bone handle that's cast in bronze with a crystal jewel at the base, and then a blade that has scales on it, carved in it, either fish scales or serpent, snake scales carved on it. It's a piece of art, right? But it's also a real tool. This is not a kitchen knife. So tell me a little bit more about the knife, and tell me, or the sword, reflecting light and that sort of thing.
Yeah. In my experience growing up in Ireland and New York City, the reference to knives and such things were anything, an iron bar or a baseball bat. It's a weapon, the unspoken, the aggressive, the secret that's untold inevitably is looking for a way out. And the misunderstanding of these elements, the mastery of metal, the alchemy in transforming base metal into a beautiful piece of art, a sword. But in the wrong hands and in the wrong perspective and without understanding, then it's misunderstood. So Robert Bly says sometimes it's necessary to lift the sword simply to reflect the sunlight and nothing else. And another of our dear friends said, never give a sword to a man who can't dance. So, it's a beautiful shift here. We're going into the place of wisdom, and let's not need to use things the way they're not meant to be used. Let's forge these relationships where we look each other in the eye and we don't keep secrets, because it's ourselves that are suffering from carrying the weight of those secrets. It's like you got a song somewhere in you, you need to learn to sing it and let it out. And we need to hear those songs. And we have, again, never had more opportunity as individuals to be alive, to shed the mantle of fear and to step out and talk to one another, to get closer to one another, and not these distant, whatever you want to call them, that we have chosen to put in places of power. I mean, children. We gave children toys, and what did they do? They played with them. But, let's talk a little bit about Khalil Gibran, if we're going to have that conversation, because that's how it is. And let's just be a little more mature about the thing, and let's look closer to home for the things that we need to find.
That's perfect. I don't think it could be said any better. I've got nothing to add to that. It's perfect. Beautiful. So thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, we can talk for days and days and days about this, but we're at about an hour now. Of course, I have more questions for you, but if you want to add anything, if you want to talk about the project, if you want to give people a way to contact you or anything like that, please do so. Otherwise, I think we're wrapping it up.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ryan. Mythologically, the stories that are available and accessible are here, but they're going to have to find a soft spot within us. We're going to have to find that place unfiltered to let these words settle in and feel them. It's about feeling these things. It's not about the glancing blow of a word bouncing off and making an echo. This is a time to move and to live and to celebrate. And the sun and the moon and the mystery of it all, we need to accept, embrace, celebrate, claim, and dance with. I hope.
Thank you so much, Patrick Brady. I'll be at your workshop this Sunday in San Diego at Indigo Dragon. I look forward to the Myth House and learning more. Thank you so much.
Thank you.